Happy Friday, guys, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Dubs. I'm your host, Bill T. Well, it's Friday, and you know what that means. Time for another Volkswagen podcast. And this is another episode that I'm bringing you from my trip to the Netherlands that I was there in Holland at the Air Mighty Show 2023. And we got a chance to sit down with Mario Steinhauser, and he's with Type 3 headquarters. And that's Europe's location for all your NOS OEM Type 3 stuff. He's kind of a master at finding it, and his whole story of how he got into being a distributor and doing all this stuff is in this podcast. So I know you guys will dig it. It's a cool story. Mario's been in the game for a long time. And most importantly, you find out how a German dude gets named Mario. So those are some of the tidbits that are coming up for you. But before we get into that, I wanted to give some shout out this week to Blake Hathaway. Now, Blake and his dad and his brother are in a show. They're on it's a YouTube channel that it's called Driven, and Do Let the Bugs Bite is the title of the video. I'll put a link in the description down below. You guys can check it out. It's pretty cool. He gets interviewed by some guys about his VW, his hobby, the club that they're in, and all that kind of stuff. And it really encapsulates what the VW hobby is all about and kind of how the community comes together. So it's pretty awesome. You guys will check it out and go ahead and give it a follow and share. And let's make this video go viral if we can, guys. Come on. That's how we got to hook it up with our homies in the VW world. If you like the podcast and you want to support, you can go to letstalkdubs.com, pick up some merch, support your favorite podcast, as well as support the sponsors that support Let's Talk Dubs. So Ross Wolf, high quality aftermarket parts built for VW people by VW people. Check out their website today at rosswolf.com. Tons of cool parts for your classic Volkswagen. Next, don't forget to go check out VW Trends Magazine. Go subscribe today at vwtrendsmagazine.com. That's their website. Get loaded up. Get a subscription. They come out 4 times a year. High quality VW features, tons of how-tos, water-cooled and air-cooled in that magazine. So go check them out today at vwtrendsmagazine.com. We're also looking to add to your VW book collection. Don't forget to go get a copy of Dub Dogs by Eric Arnold. It is a portrait study of a Volkswagen owner's best friend. So this magazine's got Volkswagens and people's pets in there. So these VW enthusiasts that have their dogs at the car shows, things like that. Over the past 4 years, Eric Arnold's been taking photographs of Volkswagens and the dogs that are with those owners. So it's a cool book. It's a high quality glossy pages hardback book. Make sure you go get yours. Go to Eric's website today at dubdogsbook.com. That's dubdogsbook.com. And don't forget to put the code in to get a discount. That discount code is LTD Podcast. That's right, LTD Podcast. You'll get a discount off your order when you order that Dub Dogs book. So if you're looking for another cool VW book to add to your collection and you love dogs, this is the book for you. Well, it's time to get into it this week, guys. If you like Type 3 talk, and you want to hear how it's done on the other side of the world, Mario Steinhauser from Germany. We're going to get into it right now. So let's get into it. Type 3 headquarters with Mario on this week's Let's Talk Dubs.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen. The bug like. So if you happen to see a good-looking Volkswagen, don't panic.
Okay, everybody. So I'm back again with another Air Mighty Show podcast. So as I'm here and meeting lots of people, I was able to go to dinner last night with one of Andy's friends and the foremost Type 3 guy here in Europe, and that is Mario Steinhauser.
Exactly. Thank you.
With Type 3 headquarters. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Thank you.
So, Mario, the way we always start the podcast, and to give our listeners a little bit of background, if you're looking for Type 3 parts and you're in Europe, Type 3 headquarters is the place where you can source most of your NOS, any NOS things that you need, and some things you reproduce as well. Mario, the way we always start the podcast is, what's your VW story and how did you get into Volkswagens?
Yeah, I was 18 years old. And my first car was a 1977 Beetle. That's how I started my air-cooled thing. because cars were everywhere and they were cheap. And we started to go to VW meetings, to shows. And I was there and looking around, and I saw a guy who haven't slept in a tent, he has slept in a squareback.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my, that's a practical thing. Let's buy a squareback. And that's how it started. I bought a squareback.
So
it was an early one.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah, a 62.
You got lucky on your
Yeah,
first purchase.
bought it accidentally. I haven't no idea what I've bought back in the days. And that was the beginning, and I completely stick to it.
And what year is this when you bought that car? What year was?
It was in 1988.
So in 88, you buy a 62 squareback.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a high side marker squareback that we've learned from our previous podcast.
Yeah.
And so right away, because I think the thing with Volkswagens is everybody's into them, and then you get into them and you want to be a little bit different, right?
Yes.
And
exactly.
so the squareback, you looked at it for a utilitarian purpose, or were you into customizing and lowering and those types of things? Or at the time you were just happy to have a Volkswagen, a car you could work on yourself, or where were you?
Yeah. Like I said, they was cheap and cheap to fix. I had not money back in the days. And so I started working on it. We lowered it, put another rims on it. And as I've bought my first squareback, changed the rims within 40 days to Fuchs wheels and lowered it because you don't need any parts to lower
Right.
Type 3.
Yeah.
So it was very practical. And it was a time to be different from all the Beetle guys.
Yeah, in the 80s, there was, for every 100 Beetles, maybe you had one custom Beetle or one custom squareback or Type 3.
Yeah.
Because the Type 3s were kind of like, I don't know if the Volkswagen people thought they were too difficult or because the engine was pancake, it's so different, but not a lot of people got it, but everybody wanted to do the same with bugs. And my brother, the car that got me into the hobby when I looked at the first VW Trends was a squareback, because back in the 80s, when you look at the squareback, I could put a lot of speakers in the back of that thing. For me, that was what to do. And my first car, I didn't have a squareback for a long time until finally I got a squareback. But my brother was really, and has always really been a big Type 3 guy. And I've had some Type 34 Gias, but without question, if you drive a Beetle and then you get into a Type 3, it's a completely different car as far as comfort, driving, handling.
Space.
Yeah, space. They're unbelievable cars. So you get this car in the 80s, and right out of the gate, you're like, you're in the exile group, right? You're the Type 3 guy. They're a little different, and then nobody's bringing parts for you, right? That's the toughest thing with Type 3s, right? Is
getting parts.
It's always been parts.
Yeah.
So you get the 62 squareback. How soon after you have it do you start really focusing on squarebacks and parts and trying to do, is that something like, well, nobody's getting them, so if I see two for sale, I'll buy both because I know somebody wants to buy the other one? Or how does...
No, I've bought another one then to have a second car, one for the summer and one for the winter time, because in Bavaria we had a lot of snow in the winter and a lot of salt on the roads.
Yeah.
So I want to keep the 62 because it was a nice condition car. It was not welded as far as I know, and so I bought one for the winter. And I was looking for parts because this was a not running car, and a friend of mine told me, I know of some Type 3 parts, that's all NOS parts, but he will sell only the whole lot. I said, okay, where is it located? And it was maybe a 300 or 400 kilometer drive, and I drove to there, and all the parts are laying on the floor, and it was a massive stash of NOS parts. And I asked him, how much is it? And he said, we're talking about 700 euros.
And what year is this? This is in the late 80s or early 90s?
This was in the very early 90s.
So what kind of parts are you looking at? Obviously at the time you saw it, did you know what you were looking at? Or you just knew like, it's a lot of parts, I can probably make my money back?
Yeah. I took the parts then I could use and tried to refinance it with selling the other stuff I didn't need.
Was $700 a lot of money to you then?
Back then, yes.
It was a
for
lot of money.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. So I thought twice to buy the whole thing, because I knew I maybe can use only 20 or 30% of the parts that was laying on the floor. So I said, oh, come, let's do it and let's try it. And this was my first buy, and since then, this is the special thing with Type 3 headquarters, buying and selling NOS parts.
Really?
Yeah.
And now with buying some of the NOS parts, so that's your first score. And then it always leads to like, oh yeah, the people call you at the swap meet, or they see like, oh, hey, you're at the car show, someone says, oh, hey, Mario, this guy's got a lot of Type 3 stuff in that booth he's getting rid of. And and you can go there, and because nobody's really interested, you're able to buy up a lot of stuff at a good price.
Exactly. And this was, the ball gets rolling since then. And people ask me, oh, I need Type 3 parts. Do you have Type 3 parts? And I said, yes. Oh, you have to look on the Samba. And I said, what's the Samba? And they said, yeah, it's a web page in America. And I said, okay. And then I started advertising stuff on the Samba.
Yeah. And
my first sale was going to Japan, to Shin from Toa, which is like Type 3 headquarters, but in Japan. And this was another thing, and I said, okay, let's try it on the internet, sell parts on the internet. And yes, it worked. And in the meantime, I ship 5 or 6 boxes to the States, for example, each day.
Really?
And
And this is when? This is what year is this?
In the early 2000s, I think.
So early 2000s, you're like, oh, I'll try this. I'll try.
Yeah, I need to check my Samba account. There is a
counter of how much, how many ads you had.
You can see when you started your account.
And so what year did you start Type 3 headquarters?
What year did you start? 20 years ago, in 2003, I founded the company because I've earned too money on selling Type 3 parts.
To have it be
and
cash.
Then the tax men came and said, you should found a company, because it's very dangerous in Germany to sell Type 3 parts with not paying tax on it.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's try it, and if it's not work, I will stop it. But it works, and so here I am.
And so you've been in the business 20 years. Where have you found, like, what was the biggest find that you ever ran across, and how did it come together?
Sometimes it's like the parts find me, not
really?
I find. There was a big company in Germany. It was called Dieter Schmidt-Lorenz VW-Teile, and I know Dieter since 15 or 16 years. I was there sometimes in his shop buying parts, and 2 years ago he rang me and he said, "Are you sitting?" And I said, "Yes, I am. Why?" And he said, "I will stop my company and I will offer all my Type 3 parts to you." And he was dealing only with NOS parts since 36 years. And I said, okay, let's talk about it, but let's talk about in person. So I drove to Hamburg, met Dieter in his office. I think we closed the deal within 10 minutes. He said one number and I said a number, and we met us in the middle. Had a Hickshand. And that's it. And I've bought 600 different NOS parts.
600?
600 different positions, and close to 40,000 single pieces.
Wow.
In one deal. It was expensive for sure, and I know I have some of these parts I was still in stock, I have in stock in 10 years.
Yeah.
Because there are always parts, they always comes.
Yes.
Or nobody is in need of.
Sure.
So, but in the end, it was a very good deal for me and for him as well.
So in the early days of finding the parts, of finding Type 3 parts in Germany, are you finding most of the parts in Germany or outside of Germany when in the early days of your doing
in the early days in Germany only.
Really?
Yeah.
And what were some of the things, like, so now you got this little side hustle going of these Type 3 parts, that you've got a little business because you've got a day job, but you're doing this. Like, what are you doing to go seek some of this stuff out? Is it just swap meets, stuff like that? Or are you like constantly looking in the papers or trying to find old car dealerships? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, it's, there was building a network around me. I have customers, they are checking the internet for me. It's not like I've never said, do this for me. And they said, I will do this for you and send you a WhatsApp message. When something interesting appears, you can check it. I have a customer who was becoming a very good friend now. And he sends me 5 or 6 adverts for parts. They are advertised in eBay or eBay Kleinanzeigen. And sometimes he picks stuff up for me and store it at his home, and I visit him 2 or 3 times a year and pick up the parts there.
Yeah, because there's some people love the hunting for the parts,
Yes.
and some people love getting the parts and distributing. I have people, especially since I've done the podcast, I'll get people to say, "Oh, hey, I know that you like to buy cars," because I buy some cars and I share the information on my podcast with some people, and a lot of them I buy to keep. And they go, "Oh, hey, did you want one of these? Because one of these is for sale over here." So I know what you mean. I get that fairly often where people are constantly sending me stuff. So going back to like hunting parts and finding parts, let's start with what are some of the most rare parts to find NOS? Like, is there some holy grail pieces that if I could find one of these, it would be a miracle?
Yes, NOS push-button unit, for example. The early light switches and wiper switches was a push-button setup.
Yes.
So not the pull switches like
Up
the
to
people had
64,
always.
right? Up to
Yes,
64.
they stopped in March or May 64 with a push-button. This to find in NOS.
You've never seen one?
I had one in a box.
Really?
Yeah, and
What did it sell for?
oh, it's maybe 10 years ago. It for only 500 euros.
And if
But-
you had it today, probably worth 700 euros.
Yeah, sure, easily. You can sell if you find a very nice working push button unit in good looking and working condition, there gets easily 500 euros today.
For a used one?
Yes.
Wow.
If it looks like a new one, there is a small chrome piece around it, and if the screws there and the switches are in working condition, you can get 500 euros.
Now, was
easily.
there something wrong with those switches where they were made at the factory, where there was a problem with them?
Yeah,
or-
there was a problem. They always were broken. The problem was the washer bottle is connected to the push button unit, and if the seal gets brittle, the whole water drains through the push button unit. So they replaced it with the pull button switches the year after.
Oh, wow. So there's a difference. There's an early and late push button model,
No, they had
or the one is a dealer repair.
it was a dealer repair. You can buy it as an aftermarket part from ISP today.
Yeah.
There is a plastic frame with brackets for the pull switches. So if
to
if you-
convert it. To
yeah,
convert
to
it.
convert it.
So
If
the
you push
dealership would do that.
yes,
Really?
yes,
So after the dealership, after Volkswagen stopped making them with push buttons, if you came in with a 64 notchback and your switch burnt out because of that, they said, "Oh,
Yeah.
we have a dealer repair kit and
Yes.
it's converted," and that was a factory thing.
yes.
Have you ever seen any of those kits?
Yeah, I had some the last years.
Really?
Yes, and if those appears in NOS in a box, it sells like warm buns. It's a saying in Germany. It sells if it sells quick. It is a saying. It sells like warm buns.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
One
hot
bun.
buns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that. I know that ISP West makes a kit for it. I just didn't know that it was actually a factory dealer, like a dealer technical service bulletin to, if you have this problem with the customer, upgrade to this. Because what's
Yeah,
funny
exactly.
is we look at modern cars today, you have the same problem. You go to a dealership, there's a problem. They say, "Oh, this is a 2-year-old model. We came up with a fix for this," and it's no longer that. And then the people in the classic car world say, "Oh, that's not original to that," but it very well could be.
Yeah.
If you had a 1964, was there any wiring with the kit, or you just used the newer switches
It used the newer switches.
and all the wiring worked?
This conversion kit was standard in the N models. They never had a push button.
Really?
Yeah, really. N models never had push buttons. They always came with the pull switches.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because the N model starts when the S model starts to get a cheaper version of a Type 3, and they had pull switches. and never the push button setup.
I didn't know that. Well, I learned something new. I learned something. I learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Wow. And so the NOS push button dash switch is quite rare. Now, is there a difference with you being a Type 3 guy? Is there a difference in being an NOS Type 3 guy and then a Type 34 guy, or it's all Type 3 to you?
It's for me. It's all the same.
So
yeah, because a lot of parts you can use on Type 3, you can use on Type 3 as well.
Well, I've been amazed with the Type 34 that there's, it's with how few were produced, how many parts are actually available on the market. If you're looking at, like, especially a few years ago, you could find NOS quarter panels, NOS noses, NOS all kinds of stuff. So I'm surprised, but Volkswagen had maybe the intention when they produce something, just they would produce X amount of parts for everything. Do you happen to know what that number would be? What Volkswagen would produce for extra parts if they built a model of something?
No, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Because I know when I did the podcast with Gary Emery, who used to own Porsche Parts Obsolete, he worked at a Volkswagen dealership in LA, and he had seen them taking pallet loads of NOS 356 stuff and throwing them in the dumpster. And Porsche said if it's more than 9 years, it goes in the garbage. So I didn't know if there was maybe a number with that, because I know that they would get rid of it too after a certain amount of time. So that's some wild stuff. So we talked about a couple things with Type 3s, and so we may just want to do like a basic Type 3 understanding. Let's just talk about the notchback, for example, and the early notchbacks, because my understanding in the stateside after 64, I think they were all S models, right? Was it what did they do, and when was the separation? Because the notchback was it originally called the 1500?
Yeah, 1500.
The 1500 was that platform for the Type 3.
Yeah.
And it was the notchback, the squareback, and the Type 34 Ghia originally.
Yeah.
The fastback came in 66.
Exactly.
And then the N model was in Germany. I think N model, like the rest of the world, N model was very basic. But I think maybe Volkswagen's plan was everything we're going to sell to the U.S. is going to be the deluxe version. Is that right? I mean, was it because we could afford it, or?
No, they
I don't know.
start in August '63 with inventing the '64 model. They start to sell the S model and the N model, the basic version, because they wanted to be. The Type 3 was more expensive than a Beetle.
Right.
And
what was the price of a Type 3 brand new?
6,400 Deutschmarks.
Compared to a Beetle, how much was a Beetle?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a Beetle guy. I have no idea. I'm sorry. But the Type 3 was more expensive, but it was the more comfortable car too.
Oh yeah, but it's a big difference in driving the Type 3. I mean, that's what one of the things I really love about my Type 34 is this just the width of the pan, the more room in the cab, So we start with the N and the S model. The S model is the deluxe. What does N stand for in Germany?
I think normal.
Normal?
Normal, yes.
And the S is special, or what is S?
Yeah, special.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You pulling my leg, or are you being serious?
Some guys said it means super, but I don't think it means super.
So N actually means normal.
Yeah.
So normal is like a base model. How base it was just one level of base you could get, or you could get, because on the Beetle, some of you get down to having cable brakes up to like 1964, just craziness.
Yeah.
How basic could you buy a Type 3?
Yeah, there are some differences between the S and the N model. You have a single carburetor engine with 45 instead of 54 horsepower. Then you have painted vent wing windows, no pop-out windows.
What color are they painted?
In car color.
So they're painted to match the body.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Then no pop-out windows, no seat release cables, no passengers sun visor, no door lock on the right-hand door on the outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's missing. And there is no set armrests, only the same like the Beetle ones with a small chrome strip in it, and no rear armrests.
So it would have like a Beetle style armrest.
Yes, the front ones were Beetle style for N models only.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, I don't think I've seen. I mean, especially in the States, I haven't seen a lot of N models. Plus, I don't think in the States the notchback was delivered to the States. I'm not 100% sure. At least in the early years, it wasn't until later, I think, because a lot of the notchbacks were coming through Canada.
Yeah, or they came back with soldiers.
Military, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Las Vegas, there's a big Air Force base, which is why we ended up with a lot of, Type 34 Gias and stuff like that there, because people would bring them back. But I don't know if I don't know for sure, but if I'm not mistaken, I think the notchback was not exported to the U.S.
You're right. Yes, it was never exported officially. They
That's-
came with
that's so
private imports.
But it's so strange that they would sell. So they didn't want to compete with the Beetle, maybe, and just to offer the wagon only.
Yeah, the regularies in the U.S. was very strict, and the notchback was, or the Type 3 was not safe enough for the American roads.
Really?
Yes, that's why VW invented the late model with the bigger bumpers, with stiffeners in the inner fenders in the front, special.
The 5 mile an hour bumper,
yeah.
That was a
So
U.S.
this
regulation.
was for the U.S. market only.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so with the N model, when you're out here in Germany looking for N and S models, because usually everything that we've run into in the States, I haven't seen very many N models, but when you see them in the States, they're usually the S models that are fairly fitted out as far as what we know to be a notchback. But it's interesting you said they have a Beetle armrest on, and it's driver's side only, or just the 2 front doors and no armrest in the rear?
Only the 2 front doors.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe you have seen some N models, but you maybe haven't recognized it.
Maybe.
Yeah, because the scrapyards were full of cars, and if you have an N model, you could get easily to a scrapyard and remove a trim from another car and put it on your N model to look like the special version.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why not many N models left as they was built.
So even with you being in this hobby for how long have you been? 30 years.
Yeah.
You've been 35, 40 years. You've been in the hobby. Since then, how many N models have you run across here in the U.S.? I mean, in Germany.
In Germany, I had one completely original N model with nothing added to it. Only one.
Out of all, how many cars have you owned?
Since I'm doing the business, I can see it on my webpage because the most cars were for sale. There was 120 cars online in the last 15 years.
So you've had 120 cars, all Type 3s passed through your hand.
All Type 3s.
And one N model, one low mileage N model.
Yes. One original staying N model.
How many miles were on it?
Around 50 or 60,000 kilometers.
And where did you find that car?
It was advertised in the internet, and a friend of mine lived close to it, and he said, "Oh, I can go for you and check it out." And so he did, and he rang me and said, "It's a very nice one, and it's completely in original state." I said, "Okay, I will buy it." So that's the story about my only original N model.
How long did you have that car?
2 years.
What made you decide to sell it?
Another cars came in, less on space. So I always try to find earlier cars or more special cars to add it to my own collection. Sunroof cars or very early ones.
And what year was that car?
Pardon?
What year was the N model you had?
It was a 64.
So they made S and N up to 64 only, and then after 64 they were all
64 and 65, and in 66 they told them A model, but I don't know why. So it was never sold as N anymore, so they sell it as A model.
But so that you could still get a stripped down 67 notchback. You can get a standard, or they stop with the standard.
They stopped with the standard, I think, in 68.
Oh, so you could still find a 66 notchback standard.
Yeah, if you're lucky enough, you can find one.
But really, most of the people, the dealerships wouldn't display that car. That was a special order probably. You came in like, well, I want to buy the notchback, but I can't afford it, this model, so we'll go. Do you know what the price difference was between an S and an N model? when they were new?
I think it was 800 Deutschmarks, which means 400 euros.
But how much was a week's pay? Like that's like a month's pay?
Yeah, around that.
So it means a fairly savvy financial decision to get the cheaper one, right? If you're, especially back then, they were mostly probably buying cars cash. I doubt they were financing too much. Now, yesterday we had a discussion about what everybody refers to as Pagani interiors, and what is the story of Pagani interiors? Like, what is that? It's known in the hobby as the red or the teak interior, right?
Yeah.
But it's not just seat covers. It's seat covers, steering wheel, shifter.
No, steering column, armrests. This is all in the red color or in brown color.
Is the emergency brake the same color? No.
No, it's standard gray.
It's the standard gray.
Yeah.
So it's going to be the armrest, the steering column, and the steering wheel are all matching the same as the upholstery.
Yes.
And there was 2 colors available.
Yes, for Pagani it was black and pearl white, and for the teak version it was pearl white and sea sand.
The exterior color of the car?
Yeah.
So only pearl white and sea sand would have. And so pearl white and sea sand, if you have a car that's pearl white or sea sand, there's a probability it could have a teak interior.
Okay, no, you can order the teak interior
with
2 colors only.
Was it an option code?
Yes, but I don't know the code. It was never sold as Pagani. It was always sold as leatherette red. So Pagani is not a VW thing. It's only what the people said to this.
Yeah. So Pagani is a name that the hobby has given to it. It was never sold through Volkswagen like that. And
exactly.
so because I remember when I had a car published in Volksworld that had red interior, and they referred to it in England as a tartan's handbag, which is like a prostitute's purse, with the red colors we discussed.
Yeah.
That you said Pagani is Italian for like red light district.
French,
yes.
From French, yeah. It's Pagani is a district in Paris, which is called Pagani. That's it. And there was a German song in the early '60s, which saying Pagani all the time, and describing going to the red light district.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's what maybe the people saying, because everything was red light district, so they're saying it's Pagani.
That's interesting. And the leatherette option would be for the red, and the teak is called teak.
Yeah, because the made of the clothes is called teak. It was available in different colors, in platinum and in azure, which means a light blue.
So it was still a 2-tone interior.
Yes.
On the seats.
The teak was the option with brown or with a black dashboard and steering column, armrests, and stuff like that. You could order a C-Sand car with the teak-colored seats, but with a black dashboard. Pagani was 45 Deutschmarks on top. The red interior was only 45 Deutschmarks, which means 23 euros.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but today, if you know a Pagani car, it's thousands of euro more than a standard interior.
Really?
Yeah.
And that might be some of the debate, right? Well, the dashboard is not supposed to be black, right? That would be some of the arguments people would make before they researched it. Now, how were you able to put all this together? Did VW ever put out a brochure or anything that described these special interior options?
Yeah, it was because I saw on a original order receipt, it was only called as Kunstleder Red, which is red leatherette interior. But I've never seen in person a Pagani prospect or brochure.
Interesting. So I wonder if it would be. And did those only come certain years?
It was an option for half a year.
Only for half a year?
Yes.
In what year is a Pagani car?
66.
So it's 66 only.
Yes.
And did they do any other cars like that? Did they do Beetles like that too?
Yeah, Beetle was available also as a Pagani or as a teak model.
Yeah,
but in 66 only.
But 66 they did some upholstery changes, like with the seaming and stuff like that. Like
yeah, except the shape of the seats is a bit different than the earlier cars.
Interesting. So there's a lot of layers to like VW, like, hey, let's try this option. Interesting.
And it's never available in notchbacks, only on fastbacks and squarebacks.
So you could never get N-Type 34 gears?
It's the same, yeah. And always in 66 for half a year.
And now,
And then they stopped it. Maybe it was too expensive,
or it
special orders.
slowed down production.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I wonder. That's an interesting. Yeah, they probably ran out of one steering column on a production line and got upset because it stopped the whole production line for one steering column. Now, we talked also yesterday about some other options. We started talking about Type 34s for a minute, and you said there was a Type 34 that I saw here that I'm hoping it may still be here, that the beige one with the Goldie sunroof.
Yes, it's owned by a customer and very well-known German person here. It's a Kamangia collector. And you could... I know another person. One has a sunroof, a Goldie sunroof in 63, but Kamangia never built sunroofs in 63.
So if
you can deliver your car to the Goldie factory, and they built a sunroof or a folding roof into your Type 34.
So they would do either or, steel roof or cloth roof, or just cloth roof, Goldie?
Goldie makes sunroofs, and as well the folding roof.
Wow. So I saw Type 34 out in the parking lot, and I said, look at that rag top. And then I was kind of joking, thinking like, why would they put a rag top in that? You know what I mean? And you were telling me that could have very well been a dealer add-on to that sunroof, and they made those cloth folding. So when he says Goldie sunroof, you guys are listening, that is the cloth style folding rag top, correct? The
Correct,
Goldie?
yes.
Yeah. And so that's pretty surprising to me, and I'm hoping the car may still be here and I could get some pictures. I don't know, but my luck, he probably left already, but I wanted to get some pictures from you.
Yeah, he left yesterday, but I can
I saw the car this morning.
For you.
I saw the car this morning when I was pulling in.
Okay, maybe
It was here,
he wasn't stayed in the hotel because he said he will go home. Maybe he means going to the hotel.
Yeah. So I want to check it out and get some pictures of that, because I'm interested on the cloth sunroof option, because I think that's cool. And is it one fold or two folds, or
Two-fold, I think. Yeah.
So it's two little tiny folds.
Yes.
That is interesting.
Yeah, the Type 34 had only a very small roof.
Did they do
and a very
that?
short one.
Would they do that on a notchback or notchbacks or fastbacks?
No, not that as I know. The sunroofs who was in Type 3s was from Goldie also. You can see
the steel sunroofs.
Yeah, on the handle it's a small
Goldie.
thing with Goldie. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Volkswagen switched to the steel sunroof in 1964. You know,
Yes.
I have a 64 Beetle, which I've never seen them advertised very much like this, but I think they're quite rare, because 64 is the only year for a Beetle it's a small sunroof. It's a small window steel sunroof. Because in 65 they increased the window sizes and it's a steel sunroof. So 65 and later is you're not getting anything other than the steel sunroof. But the 64 steel sunroof to me it's interesting because it's a 1 year only kind of car. So it's a small window with the steel crank roof.
Yeah.
I've never seen them advertise like this is what makes this car special and worth more money, but I would think they would be worth more money. But we know that with Volkswagen probably having contracts with Goldie for these roof sections, that this was being in 1964. That's when, is that the first year you can get a sunroof in a Type 3?
No, in the Type 3 they started in 1962.
So you can get sunroofs all the way up to 1962?
Yes.
Wow.
I have a December 62 car with a original sunroof.
And in the Type 3 they were manually operated?
Yes, manual,
And
always.
Only in the Type 34 were they electric?
Yes.
And they use this, is it the same motor they used for the 911 or the Porsches at the time?
Ooh, I don't know.
I wonder. I would think that Goldie would use the same motors.
Yeah, they build sunroofs for other companies too, so why not BMW or Mercedes?
So do you manufacture parts as well? Have you started to manufacturing parts, or you just try to focus mainly on the...
No, I've started doing reproduction because a customer asked me, do you have this special part like the outer window scraper?
Right.
They are always broken because there's a very thin rubber lip.
And everybody puts their arm on it.
Yeah, puts the arm on it, and they fell in pieces. And the inner ones was available already. And a customer of mine asked me, he's they're working for a car company and doing rubber stuff. He said, if you're in need of something, let's talk about, and maybe we can do something together. And so I shipped one of those outer scrapers to him, and he said, I need this part. Let me know how much it is to make reproductions.
And you
those.
need both a left and a right.
No, he can. It's the same, left and right, but
Oh, is it
only,
just flat?
No, it's left and right one, but he can, I don't know the correct word, it likes mirroring to make a left to a right one. And,
Right.
And so he did, and he sent 2 or 3 samples and said, "Are you happy with this?" And I installed it, and I said, "Oh no, we need to do some changes because I always do my logo on these parts, and I want to have them make it fit from the first attempt and a long-lasting one." So that's why we have 2 or 3 samples before we made a production of it.
And we discussed a little bit about rubber parts yesterday, because there's some rubber parts in the market, you get them and 6 months later they're cracked on your car, which is kind of frustrating because we pay a lot of money. And I think especially with the people in the hobby now, they're willing to pay a little bit more. I don't think they have a problem to pay 20% more for stuff that's guaranteed to be good quality.
Yeah, and that's a big problem, and that's why we are to do the toolings and the rubber stuff, everything in Germany, because
well, you can't trust China. They're just gonna, listen, we'll just say what it is. I mean,
I don't want to squeeze out the last cent to make as much as.
It's not important to cut quality to get.
Yeah, to me it's important. It's a long-lasting and fitting part.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. That's one of the frustrations that I've had, that the VW community is so committed to buying good quality stuff, and they're so used to being given bad quality everything.
Yeah, you couldn't make 100,000 of them because not as much Type 3 is left.
Right.
So if you're doing a reproduction, you can 500 pairs of those, and you have them for years.
You think?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the first production was 500 pairs, and I'm very low on those at the moment, and they were available for 4 years maybe. So it took 4 years to sell 500 pairs.
Yeah, but how many people know that you have them?
I think a lot.
You think?
Yeah. The first 200 pairs were sold in weeks.
Now, how are you tracking? Because with what you do, it's kind of specialty with Type 3 headquarters. How are you able to get your? Because when I look at your logo, I remember your logo because I can't remember if it's probably the Samba where I see your logo a lot, and I don't know if you sell on eBay too.
Yeah, it's on every advertisement is a picture of my logo.
I've seen the logo, so maybe that's where I've seen the logo, and I'm just because I've got a Type 34. You don't sell much Type 34 stuff.
Mostly the same is like Type 3 stuff, but sometimes it happens to get my fingers on NOS parts for Type 34. Doesn't happen often, but sometimes it happens. But as soon as you offer it for sale,
it's gone.
Yeah, it takes minutes and they are sold.
I know on my Gia, my Type 34, Lee had sent me, I think it was Lee sent it to me, or maybe somebody online I bought it from. But there's a striker plate on the front hood that was made of plastic that the hood release rides on when you pop the hood. Is anybody making those? Are you familiar with that part?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No. Most parts available as aftermarket is rubber stuff for Type 34.
Yeah, this piece was like a Bakelite. I mean, almost like you could 3D print it, maybe. Yeah,
maybe.
But I think with the technology of 3D printing and stuff like that, I think we have an opportunity to get a lot more types prototyped and then produced.
Yeah, if the material is strong enough and long-lasting enough, you can.
Well, and what's the difference? You have a friend that's in the rubber business. Did he say that there's a difference between making rubber 30 years ago, 50 years ago versus making rubber now?
Yeah.
All the environmental changes?
Yeah, the problem is if you have a complicated shaped rubber, they are saying we are not able to do this because you need a lot of toolings to make this one rubber. So the problem is there are not many Type 34s around, and you could. It's the same like Type 3. You couldn't produce thousands of them because how many Type 34 left?
Wow, but let's say if a guy made brand new dashboards, how many people need dashboards for Type 34s?
A lot.
Almost, I would say 80% of the cars, if they have nice dashboards, they might have been rebuilt or put underneath. And if someone said, I've got brand new reproduction dashboards that are exactly the same as factory.
Yeah, but I think they would be very expensive. And we tried this with a Type 3 dashboard, and the tooling.
Did you try? Because that's where I was going with this question.
We tried it and did 3D measurements on it, but we couldn't find a company who can make a big tool to reproduce a dashboard. It's a bit easier on maybe armrests, paddings,
right?
But for a complete dashboard, it's get a horrible amount of money to make this tooling.
Yeah, and then if you're $50,000-$60,000 making the tooling, how many sets are you going to make that up?
Yeah,
right?
And you can sell maybe 100 of them.
Yeah,
everyone wants to make a profit, so
right.
the company who makes a tool wants to make profit.
You
and
have
the
to make
too.
money, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it without making a profit. That's an interesting perspective to look at on it, because, but I think I just keep thinking with technology today, there's got to be some way that a guy could, CNC machine it out of foam and then wrap it plastic.
But you need a metal inlay also for the dashboards. It's not
for
only
the bolts,
foam,
right? For the bolts that go in there.
There was a rubber dashboards available a while ago in the late model style, but you can make a note in it. It's completely made of rubber, and if you screw it down and the sun shines on it, it comes up.
It starts to it starts to pucker or flower. Yeah,
yes.
That's wild. Yeah, there's so much to be, and that's kind of the struggle. It's like there's so much that can be made in the parts section, but it's like putting the money out to do it and then hoping to recoup the cost back. So talking about cars and cars that you've owned and had, what's in your collection now?
In my collection now is a December 63 notchback. Mm-hmm. A 64 notchback in completely original state, had only one repaint. Other than that, carpet, floor mats, everything is in excellent shape.
And that's the car you have here today?
No, that's another one.
That's a different one?
Yes. Then I have the 64 I have here on show. It's a ruby red with a black roof. Then I have exactly the same car at home for my girlfriend. It's a ruby red one with black roof and a sunroof option.
Wow.
I have a 68 sunroof squareback.
How rare is a 68 sunroof?
Sunroof squarebacks doesn't come often for sale because the squareback was a little more expensive than a notchback.
Right.
And normally it was a worker's car for little companies to put your tools in it. And they always try to save money, so they haven't ordered the sunroof option. Or it was family cars. If you have more kids than one, or 2 or 3 kids, and you need a space because you want to go on holiday, you save the money for the sunroof and ordered it without.
So is there a place where you have production numbers for any of this stuff written down, where there's any of this data that's been put together, or no?
I'm not really into numbers.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes to numbers for cars, how many were produced or stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Yeah, because I understand the sunroofs are pretty rare in respect to the Type 3s. Just in general, there wasn't a lot of those already done. We talked about two-tone. You told me on your car that you've got out here, it's black it's red with a black roof. Mm-hmm. The two-tone option they offered only in notchbacks from what years?
They was available on squarebacks too, but only in 64 and 65.
So you could get a squareback with a different color roof.
Yeah, exactly.
And what was the color combinations?
Mostly were ordered. The color combination was for white and black roofs only. It depends on the body color. Mm-hmm. You could order a sea blue car with white or with a black roof. The same on a Nutria car, ruby red, Golf blue.
Wow. I didn't even know. So you had the option of black and white in either of those color combos. Mm-hmm. Is it in the brochure written like that to do it as an option?
Yes, there's a brochure where you can choose the roof colors.
Interesting.
And the interior stuff, because you could order leatherette or the close interior.
And what, in that 66 only?
No, in 64 and 65.
64 and 65?
No, yeah, 64 and 65, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because 66
as long as the S model were available.
Yeah, 66 was the one that 66 is the one where the Pagali was for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I like the two-tone option. I don't think I've ever seen a factory two-tone squareback. You have one, you said?
I had one, but it sold and swapped to another car.
Really?
It was a bit earlier, but it's
What do you mean
easy
swapped
to
to another
repaint
car?
a roof in another. Pardon?
They repainted the car?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean, swapped to another car? They got rid of the two-tone color?
No, I wasn't rid of it, but there was another earlier car I want to get, and
So
there is a number on cars where the workshop is full.
Right.
So one needs to go to get another in.
So they had a couple prototype notchback convertibles.
Yes,
Did
people
they
are
ever-
talking about 6 of them.
Did they ever make it out to the hands of the public?
No, they was handed out to
Executives for
for
Volkswagen?
companies like Mahawk or Rafa in Hamburg, which was big dealerships, and they was handed out to them.
Has anybody tracked those down?
Yes, there's a guy in Germany who was tracking on the notchback and Type 34 convertible. This guy is owning a Type 34 convertible, one of the real ones,
Really?
not the Lorenz ones.
What condition was it in?
It was in poor condition, but now it looks like it came from the factory line.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd love to take a look at the Type 34 convertible. I mean, I think they're. I mean, I'm not a convertible guy. I don't like convertibles, but I think it would be interesting to see one of those in person.
A convertible is just a half car.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
But
wonder.
I would love to have one of the original Type 3 ones, but they completely disappeared. And the guy who is tracking the numbers of Type 3s knows where they were scrapped and have and have pictures of them on the scrapyards.
No.
I've seen those pictures, and it's
That is
hard to see.
That is awful.
Yeah, very hard to see.
I mean, for those cars to end up going to executives and then just to be scrapped.
Yeah.
Wow. That hurts. That hurts a lot.
Yeah.
So with what you're doing, how have you seen the industry getting with Type 3 parts? I mean, you've got Alex at ISPS reproducing a bunch of stuff, right?
He's doing a lot of reproductions.
He's kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the industry, right? Like the big guy for Type 3 stuff, and he's really produced a lot. I haven't had Alex on the podcast, but I'm sure I'll have him soon enough. But he definitely puts a lot of production into it, and the tough thing with producing things, you've got to have the financial money up front to put it, the customer base to get it put out there, and then the connections to make it all, to put it all together. So you started producing window scrapers, and what else have you produced?
Yeah, we started. The first one was the plug for the timing hole in the engines, because it always was missing. Then we had some pressure rubbers, so rings for the front beam, then rear ones, and then the outer scrapers.
Oh, nice. So so all those parts you had reproduced.
Yes.
And you have resources to go to for a rubber manufacturer. It's just weighing the odds of, like, is it worth it to put the money to...
Yeah, I've talked to Alex some years ago. So because in the same year I was bringing the timing hole plug on the market, Alex did the same.
Oh,
so
really?
we talked together and said it doesn't make sense to have two companies who make them, because maybe we should talk together, and doing one company is doing one rubber and another company is doing another one. I think it's more helpful for the Type 3 community.
Did you look at Alex's part?
Yes, Alex is buying parts from me and I'm buying parts from him.
But the timing cover you guys did, was there a difference in the quality between the one he had made and you had made?
I haven't any from ISP.
You didn't look at his.
No, because I had to make 200 or 300 of them, though.
Yeah. No. Well, I'm just curious the difference in quality, right? Because his are not made in Germany and yours are made in Germany, right? So I'm just curious the level of quality and the difference. That would be an interesting thing to take into consideration, and just to see what you get made overseas and what you get made in Germany. I'm curious, just based on...
Yeah, but I never had one of these plugs in hands.
Now...
but I think it's the same. He tried to get the best quality he can get for his money.
Now, another one of the options that they have is a Type 3 tack. Is that a real option?
Yeah, I don't know the price, how much they was back in the days, but if you find one today, they are pretty expensive.
What's a Type 3 tack sell for? If you had an NOS Type 3 tack, what's it worth?
There are two different ones available. One from the company Gossen and one from the company VDO. Early style, later style. Selling those with the original box easily can reach €1,000. Type 34 more than that.
That's insane.
For a Type 34 one, because it looks a bit different and has this small pin in the middle of the tag.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? What do you think is going to be the biggest thing that's going to affect the future of this hobby? From you, like, where do you see this hobby going in 5 years?
It depends on the regulations of your country, because in Germany it's getting more complicated or more expensive to running a classic car, because fuel gets expensive now, and if you have regulations that makes it more complicated to register a classic car, this may be other countries. I think in the States there are so many classic cars, and they have a different meaning to classic cars maybe.
Right. And I mean, you've got several classic cars. Is it expensive to own multiple cars in Germany?
It depends on if you register every car. You can own it, that's not a problem, but if you try to register it, you have every 2 years to go to technical inspection, and they are checking if it's roadworthy, lights are working, brakes are working, if the ball joints in okay condition. But if you have a car and if you have more cars and don't register it, it's not a problem.
But you can't drive them.
Yes.
You cannot drive them if they're not registered.
You need to register every car. You can have a dealership license plate. It's red instead of the normal black ones.
I have one.
Yeah, and you can drive every car you have with these license plates, but it's not very legal because it's only a workshop license plate, you know.
You have one?
Yes, for sure.
I mean, it's the easiest way to have these cars. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I've got a friend that's got a dealer's license, and I was able to get on his dealer license. But it's with the regulations, it's making it tough. But as far as it's interesting, at this time in the market, I've never seen so many parts available. There's a lot of stuff available compared to 15 years ago. What's available for everything, you know, whether it's Type 3s with what Alex is reproducing and all these other, CSP. I mean, I saw stuff CSP was doing that I had no idea that they were doing. So there's a substantial amount of people that are bringing things to the table. What do you think's missing? If you could produce this thing X cheaply, you'd sell 1 million of them. What would it be?
Yeah. Dashboards.
Yeah,
dashboards.
If you could get them made cheap enough, you could sell all of them.
I think so. Yes.
What's the price on them? Like, you find an NOS dashboard, what's it going to sell for?
It depends on the year, because they have some changing. There are 4 or 5 different Type 3 dashboards available.
What's the year splits on them? 62, 64?
61 to 65.
61 to 65.
66, 67. 68 to 71, and the very late one with the special speaker grill.
So you would basically need 2 for the early ones if all you were doing was the early ones.
I would do the super early ones, the so-called wraparound dashboard.
Yeah.
I've sold one recently to the States it was really in perfect shape, looked like brand new, for €1,200.
Holy
plus
smack.
The shipping.
And €1,200 is are we at 1-to-1 now, or are we 1 to 1.2? The euro to the dollar.
1.1, I think.
1.1, so it's about 10% more. So it's about $1,100. That's still a lot of money for a dashboard. Yeah. That's crazy.
I found the NOS one recently, and I've posted the unboxing on my Instagram account.
I'm gonna have to follow it.
I had a lot of requests for how much it is, but I haven't valued it. Or
What would it be? What do you think? What would be your number if somebody said I
no,
want it?
there is
I mean, there's always a number. If someone said I'll give you $5,000 for it, it's gone, right?
sure.
Right. But the reality is,
I think for less
yeah.
also.
But if somebody says 1,500,
I think the right person would pay this for an NOS
Yeah.
dashboard.
if they're for the right car.
Yeah.
No, I mean there's a lot of stuff out there that everything, the market's depending on what someone's willing to pay, and with people getting really focused on doing restorations, some people are just to the point they're so deep into it they don't care now at this point. Like, who cares how much it costs? I just want the piece and I want it done. Any parts that you plan to be making or looking at making in the future?
Not at the moment, because of the big stash I've bought from the Schmidt-Lorenz company
And that was recently?
2 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah, 1.5 years ago. I'm still having boxes that I've not checked what's inside. So if I want to find NOS parts, I only need some boxes in my workshop.
That's insane. So you don't even know everything you have. He just kind of showed you a big
I think
pile
I
of
know
stuff.
90% of the parts I have, but others are in boxes I never.
Anything you got that really surprised you?
Yeah, sometimes I'm surprised how many parts are stashed away. They're still stashed away.
Yeah.
I was in Luxembourg recently buying some boxes full of NOS parts and was surprised I could find some Type 34 NOS parts, even some short pieces of door seals.
What did you find?
It's like how it's often a customer called me and said, "Oh, I know a guy in Luxembourg. I've made a front beam for him, and he told me he has some Type 3 parts. If he knows a person who would buy the whole stash, not only single pieces, so the whole stash." And I said, "Yeah, send me some pictures," and he did. And I contacting the guy and I said, "Yeah, thank you for the pictures, but can you do a list what you have?" I said, "Yes, it's not a problem," and sent me a list of 8 pages with NOS parts, numbers, and quantity.
8 pages?
8 pages, yes. It makes it very easy to value the whole stash.
Absolutely.
And they said, "How much do you want?" And we agreed to a okay price for him and for me.
That's incredible. And is that what you're selling here today? Is a lot of NOS parts?
Yes.
What do you have? A lot of late model stuff?
I'm more specialized in the early model stuff because late NOS models, NOS stuff doesn't appear that often.
Yeah. I'm curious if that was.
It's maybe because of the low numbers. It was late model were only the late model is from 71, from 1970 to 73, so it's only built for 4 years.
4 years, and what's the production number on those cars? Do you know?
I don't know.
Really low. You said your first Beetle was a 77.
Yes.
In the U.S., they only produce 12,077 Beetles.
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday.
You got rid of a really rare car. Do you still know
yes,
that car is?
but no, I didn't recognize. I was very surprised yesterday evening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the I was surprised to find out that was the last year they built the Beetle with a steel roof. Like after that, 78, 79, they only built convertibles. They didn't build any hardtop sedans.
Crazy.
You let it go.
Yeah.
What we don't know, we don't know.
I sell it to a friend and he crashed it, unfortunately.
That's out of control.
Yeah.
Well, anything you want to, so if people want to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Mostly they're sending emails or message me through Instagram or my Facebook account.
And your Type 3 headquarters on all of the above?
Yes, on Facebook, T3HQ.
So T3HQ on Facebook?
Yes.
And then on Instagram, same T3HQ?
T3HQ Mario.
T3HQ Mario. How does a German guy get an Italian name? That's my last.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. As my mother came into hospital for the birth, normally the planned name was Marcus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on the same day, another Marcus was born, and she said, "Oh, I couldn't name him Marcus also," so that was Mario. And my grandmother was completely shocked. Why you give this boy a name from an Italian?
Well, that's what I was sitting with. I got introduced to you. I thought, I've never met a German guy named Mario. Did you get a lot of flack growing up? being named Mario in Germany?
No, it wasn't.
People were like, "Oh, that's a cool name. You're not a Klaus. You're not a..."
No. I would be more happy without naming Mario because my brother is Thomas.
Yeah,
So
he got a
it's
regular
more,
name.
Yeah, but it wasn't that.
It's the same with me. My brother's name is George, and I got Vasilios. And so my dad used to call me Bill, so I changed it to Bill. I changed it to Billy when I was a kid, and Bill. Going to school in America with the name Vasilios. It's not a good time.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
Can imagine.
No. So, well, that's great, man. I'm glad we got a chance to sit down and talk, and I'm looking forward to, seeing any of the new finds that you have. And if you ever come up with anything that you get a big stash load of something and you want to say, "Hey, Bill, this is Mara. I just want to check in real quick." We do a 5-minute segment. You can come on and we can talk about a big load of stuff that you got, advertise it to all my listeners. And if you guys are wanting to follow him, you guys got his Instagram and you got his Facebook. So make sure you guys follow T3HQ and pick up some parts for your Type 3s. Mario, I appreciate it. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, man.
If you like that podcast, and I'm sure you did, make sure you share this podcast with any of your friends that might be into Type 3 stuff. We love when you guys share the podcast. There's no better way to grow our podcast than having our listeners share it with all their friends in the VW hobby. So I appreciate it from you guys. If you haven't had a chance to go to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star review, if you enjoy this podcast, head over to Apple Podcast, sign up if you need to, but leave us a 5-star review. Leave your name in the review so when we read your review, we give you a shout out proper. So appreciate you guys. Lots of cool stuff coming up. If you want to support the podcast, go to letstalkdubs.com. You can pick up some merch over there. Other than that, big things happening, man. Just dropped my car off this week to get shipped to the UK. It's on its way, the Type 34 Ghia. So 2024, we'll be doing some cool things in the UK with my Type 34 debuting at a show out there. So I'm excited for that. But we'll get into that on another podcast coming up here shortly. So until next week, guys, later.
You probably don't know that there's a new Volkswagen out that doesn't look like a Volkswagen.